Today, someone sent me a message. This message is talking actually a business time reports. Okay, I think the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong have gone to address to the NTUC, the union. All right, and he made a speech. In his speech, actually, it's coincidence. I think it's coincidence because I have already planned to talk about how they mismanage this hyperinflation situation. But then we have this article that came out, okay, from Business Time. Right? The title is Price Hikes of Essential Services Unavoidable. What do you mean by unavoidable, right? But needy household will get help, right? Prime Minister Lee say that. And I want to talk about this basically because they are throwing money again at the problem. Well, I believe many of you will be receiving notification that whether you take $200 or $800, right, with a new package that the government is giving, right? Now, of course, everybody love money. What's wrong with having more money? famous, famous quote from our uh, LKY, Lee Kuan Yew. Okay, now it says this business time. I just read some of the gist of it. In times of a slow growth and high inflation, slow growth and high inflation. Actually, it's not slow growth. We are actually technically, in real terms, we are not growing at all. When your inflation is 5%, for example, and your economy grows at 2 to 3%, you are actually in the negative arena, right? You're actually in the real terms, in terms of real terms, okay? We are not having a growth. It's not real growth, okay? Cannot completely avoid raising the prices of some essential public services, even it strives to keep overall costs low. That's what it says, huh? Said Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong on Wednesday, not today, okay, 23rd, 22nd of November. If they are not essential, we can delay them for a while longer. Wow. He said, okay, I raise the price of water and electricity because it's essential. Huh? Essential service, public services. I hope I didn't get him wrong. Or is he saying that essential to raise the prices? Okay. He said, the first statement says, some essential public services, right, have the prices cannot avoid to be raised. And he said, if they are not essential, we can delay them for a while longer. If these services are not essential, we can wait for a while longer. Essential means what? Everyone will need it, will have to use it, right? Essential to our livelihood. Or because demand is inelastic. Demand is inelastic means that there's basically no substitute for water, for example. There's no substitute for electricity, right? That's essential. You die must use one. That means we are just price taker, right? Our demand is inelastic, right? Demand and supply, right? Demand is inelastic, like that. Right? Then they can raise prices. Huh? If it's not inelastic, then we can delay for a while. Huh? What is he talking about? I don't quite understand, okay? Or at least moderate the immediate increase. Okay, he said, right? As an econs graduate, an honest graduate, I cannot understand his logic. I cannot understand at all. Okay, I will explain why. I will explain why PAP government under his leadership have mismanaged the whole thing. Okay, he cited the upcoming 7% increase in public transport fares. That is essential services that will come into effect from December 23. The government will absorb two-thirds of what the increase should be, a move that will cost $300 million this year alone. 哇，講到五厘五後啊，the government is actually suffering absorbing $300 million of cost. Okay, now when the public transport increase in prices, naturally we would think that it's due to the cost increase. But why the cost will increase? Petrol, right? Diesel, right? But as far as I know, diesel prices actually stabilize, right? Actually, it drops for $3 plus when the first Ukraine war started. My my petrol actually was $3 plus per liter. Now it drops to 280, right? So why is there a need to increase? I don't know. Okay, okay. But I say more subsidies. Never mind. But some price increases will not be avoidable. Okay. Oh, that means I am really confused. What is it trying to say? It said, oh, public transport fare increased by 7%, but the government also suffer. Okay, never mind. Right? Pushing them off to the future doesn't solve the problem. Oh, that's what he says. The government's approach would be to proceed with the price hikes as planned, but provide more generous and targeted support to households which need more help when necessary. Okay, that's why what help are you talking about? Giving more money lah. Okay, we are one room flat, two room flat, three room flat. You get more money, $800. Right, December coming. That's the type of help he's providing. That's why the assurance package has been enhanced several times this year. Keep throwing money at the problem. I will tell you why it is wrong. Okay, from the economic perspective. Right, more vouchers, rebates, and special payments to families in need. Adding that such an approach has worked. Really, really so? Never mind. What we are doing keeps public services financially sustainable, financially sustainable, and of a high standard for the long term. Right? Okay. While in the short term, households get extra help according to their needs so that we can share the burden fairly. Okay. Singapore Premium says in his address, Prime Minister Lee highlighted how the government's twin priorities of being both pro-growth and pro-workers, okay, have ensured that Singaporeans can benefit fully from economic growth. Really? How do we actually benefit from the growth of population by 5% within 1 year? Increase in population by 5% 1 year, it means that increase in demand tremendously, especially on essential food, right? And that's why our food prices are increasing, in spite of the fact that our Sing dollars is very strong, because our defense against imported inflation is to maintain the strong dollar, right? But in spite of that, we have put it that way. Most of our fresh ration, right? Fresh raw fruit, right? Vegetables, for example, comes from Malaysia. Eggs comes from Malaysia. $1 to ringgit is at a historical high, 3.4, 3.5. One Sing dollars is to 3.4, 3.5 ringgit. But yet, our food prices are increasing. What went wrong? Because our internal demand, domestic demand have increased. And that push up demand and simple economics theory. When the demand increase, price increases with supply limited. Very simple. Simple as it is, right? No need a econs honest grad to tell you that. Anyone who took econs 101 from A levels will know that, right? Singapore's unique model of tripartisan, okay, has created a Singapore premium, okay, where companies and investors are prepared to pay more to take advantage of the country's harmonious industrial relations and business-friendly environment. But even as the ruling People's Action Party government introduces policies to improve people's life, it also does its best to keep the cost of governing as low as possible. Is that so? Is that so? Later, right? We noted that while our living standards have risen, no, 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 no. I think he's confused about living standard versus quality of living. All right. Living standards doesn't mean that price increase is an increase of living standard. Okay. So have Singaporeans' expectations and aspirations. Although income have risen steadily year after year, well, okay, we must look at real income. Many households still feel the pressure of the cost of living. Why? Oh, because it's our fault. Because Singaporeans' expectation and aspiration have increased. Is that so? He is actually indirectly blaming us, right, for feeling the pressures of the cost of living. When you have a baby, right, but your milk powder actually increased in prices so horrendously over the years, out of the norm. Having the same brand of milk powder for the baby is in what increase the rise in the expectation and aspiration of Singaporeans? Nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. Right? The government does its utmost to moderate this pressure on households by running a lean and efficient government. Question mark. And by ensuring the essential public services such as public transport, water, electricity, and healthcare are run efficiently and cost effectively. If it's run efficiently and cost effectively, why are you increasing water bond service taxes, water tariff, right? Electricity tariff, even when the oil prices start to go down. Yeah. Public transport, well, I have said this before. Two simple, two just two MRT station cost $1 billion, and we built our MRT, the North South line, right? Only at $6 billion. I think it's together with Northeast line also, and we still do not know how much the T5 will cost. Well, the last time they said they do not have the overall budget yet, right? By keeping government spending and taxes low, GST have just increased, my Prime Minister, my dear Prime Minister. You just increase the GST. Workers can enjoy the fruits of their own labor directly. This is better than having to pay a big share of what you earn in taxes to provide supposedly free services to the public. No, no, no. We are not talking about free services. We have never said anything about free services. Okay? Don't try to change that narrative. We have never talked about free services. Right? The government has also avoided putting the whole burden of public services on taxpayers, only requiring users to pay reasonable charges to use these services. Reasonable charges. You're asking the current consumers like me to pay additional taxes on water bond tax, just because the narrative is, oh, in future we are planning for future, we have to build more infrastructure for the future, and that is called reasonable? No, that's not reasonable. all the infrastructure that we need at this moment is already there. You are increasing the taxes on us so that you can build more infrastructure for the future expansion of foreign migrants, not us. Do you understand that? Is that reasonable? We'll come back to that. At the same time, it requires the operation to break even. They're making money after the subsidy, right? Whether it's Singapore Powers, whether it's SBS, Comfort Delco, whether it's PUB, they are more than breaking even. Now, when the private services, PUB, is actually owned by the government, when Comfort Delco is greatly owned by Temasek Holding, which is GLC, so-called, right? Are they private operators or public operators? They are both, right? And you're talking about incentivize operators to run these services efficiently. You still can run the services efficiently, right? Without increasing profits to them. Okay. Now, before that, you say to break even, right? It requires the operation to break even. Then below, it says it's better to let them earn a reasonable profit. Hey, make up your mind. You want them to break even only, or you want them to make profit? Okay, so that they have the resources to reinvest to improve services and the incentive to do so. No. He said overall, this approach has worked well. On whose burden? On us. The burden is on us, right? And this strategy has moderated the cost of living for all households. Moderated the cost of living for all households. I do not know how many percent of Singaporeans will agree to that. Eh? No. In economics, there's supply economics and demand economics because the market have both supply and demand. I'm going to explain some of the basic economics theory. Okay, when you have inflation caused by supply chain issue, and at the same time, due to increase of population, right, increase in demand, and the increase in population is not indigenous. What do you mean by indigenous? It's not due to Singaporeans, local Singaporeans giving birth, because our TFA, our total fertility rate is actually very low, TFR, right? So we are giving out new citizenship to PRs. Then we are giving out new PRs to replace those PRs who have become new citizens. Then we are increasing population, right, to get more foreigners to work in Singapore. You can't run away from it because Singapore is a small country. Our logistic base, supply chain base is actually constrained. So when you increase 5% of population within a short period of time, you are going to increase demand on all sort of things, right? All sort of things, from COE, right, cars, right, to food, to housing. You can't run away from that. So part of the problem of this hyperinflation that we are facing is due to the population policies. Well, people will start to say, oh, no, 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 it's a worldwide issue. Worldwide issue. No. Yes, the worldwide issue, initially we have a war in Ukraine, but the impact of the supply chain issue actually subsided. As I said, the oil prices actually dropped a bit. You people who drive like me will know when we go to a petrol station, we know. Used to be $3.20 or more, right? Now it's 2.80. It drops by 10-15% already, right? The only problem, right, is that it's not I say that this essential service cannot increase price, right? But this is a supply issue. When you have a supply issue, for example, raw material will increase, right? When you try to catch up with the building of housing to cater for a 5% increase in population, building materials will increase. The logistic cost, right, for all the supplies will increase. But yet, you go and increase petrol tax, you go and increase water tax, then aren't you just adding oil into fire? 火上加油啊，还怕我们不死啊？You're afraid that we don't die from it, is it? That's a wrong management. When you have a fire, now the role of a government is very simple. It's not about profit and loss. It's never about profit and loss. You should not run a country like a company. The role of government is to moderate the direction of the economy in reaction to the situation. For example, right, when the economy is bad, right, going downturn, it is the role of the government to spend more. When the economy is booming, right, overheat, the government should actually spend less. Ah, it's just like wow, imagine the economy of a country is a ship. When the wind is blowing the other direction, you want to maintain a certain cost, you have to turn the other side. It's the same for inflation. When you have a hyperinflation situation, you're supposed to lower the pressure of the inflation, not to add burden to the inflation. Increasing taxes, GST, especially GST, right? GST during a hyperinflation situation, you're adding more oil to the fire. Is that what a responsible government will do? Do they actually know what they are doing? Right? Do they actually know what they are doing? Whatever they are doing is against a common sense of economics 101. Right? Inflation can be caused by two factors. One is a supply economics, right? Supply chain issue. One is on the demand side. We have both. We basically have both. And the worst part is the PAP actually add oil to both. Because in December, when you start to give money in, right, $200 or $800, you actually increase the liquidity, the cash flow into the economy. You study Econs 101, right, in A levels. What would that do when you increase the money supply? You increase demand. When you increase demand, what happens? Price will go up further. Who in his right mind would actually do that? It's effing populist policy. Why? Only a populist government or PAP always say opposition are populist. They are the one who are populist. Or because people are making noise, price goes up, right? Livelihood got problem, right? Okay, we throw money to them, make them appease them. You are going to add oil to the problem because you're increasing money supply and trade. You're going to push the price further. Mark my word, the inflation will go up, right? Are they doing the right thing? Are they doing the right thing? They are not doing the right thing. they're making the situation even worse. First, by increasing the cost of businesses, increasing the cost of essential services or essential supplies like electricity and water and fuel, right? Then increasing tax are basically increase of GST during the period of hyperinflation. No matter what you have done, right, in pegging the foreign exchange rate, which is supposed to work to counter imported inflation. Why is it not working right now? Sing dollars is at a historical high, versus Sing ringgit, but yet it's not keeping the inflation down. Why? Because your supply chain, you add taxes, you add costs, it increases the cost. And when you do that, you expect the pricing will not go up. Which school of economics do they go to? Do they study? And the worst part, on the other hand, they're going to increase population, increase demand. That's number one. And on top of that, they are going to throw money into it, throw liquidity, money supply into it to push the demand even higher. Prices will spiral out of control. Mark my word, right? It's already spiral out of control. Who will suffer? Those who are working. Then PAP, very smart one, very smart one, right? The tripartite, right? That's why you go to the union and talk about tripartite. Oh, you don't worry. Under the tripartite, right? Will make the companies increase your pay. And I've explained in my uh, a few live chat ago, right? What they have done. They have asked the companies, right, as an advisory, so called. If you don't follow, then you will lose your status of employing more workers and all that for foreign quota and all that, for the SME. Okay, it says what you all must increase. You all must increase the wages of the workers at least by 5% to 7%, regardless of whether you are making money. Huh? What? That means you are actually, again, using administrative measures to push, to add cost to the supply chain. And if you do that, the company need to survive. So what do? They push the price up again. Why 5%? Because our inflation, overall inflation is 5%, CPI. But I tell you, the CPI can be calculated in many ways. Depends on how you define it. Okay. As a country, the common country, we have a basket of goods, right? By the value that was purchased or consumed, so-called um, goods and services, right? They will calculate the weightage. Then they will calculate the increase in the pricing of each category and use the weightage and multiply and add them together. Then you get 5%. So even when the food price increase by 20-30%, it doesn't matter because the overall consumption or overall value of the food, okay, among all the consumption in Singapore, maybe not very much, right? There are housing, which is a big ticket item, right? There are transportation, maybe big ticket item, and so on and so forth, right? Now, this is based on the whole country basket of goods. So when he said 5%, inflation. Does it mean that your food only increased in 5%? No. Your food can increase by 30%, but the CPI only reflected by 5% because of the weightage given by the objective calculation. That's how they calculate CPI. Now, a youngsters who go out, right, who are in schooling, his CPI is different from a retiree, right? A middle age, a 30-year-old or 40-year-old Singaporean who are working, right, having a household, will have very different CPI from the retiree. Retiree mainly, they don't spend much on other things, mainly on food, correct? So when the food increased by 30%, it affects their CPI much greater. Their CPI may be inflation, their personal CPI may be increased by 20% because food forms the biggest component of their consumption. They don't go around to buy new clothes, for example. Unlike those who are working, more people, those who are working will spend more money in buying working clothes. So consumption pattern difference from different age group, different contexts. So when you face a food increase, right, that may be a big component to the retirees. And we always remember that when you're working, the government can force the company to increase your pay by 5%, right? To cover the inflation, overall inflation. Okay. Oh, PK Ang, yes, you can control the inflation. Why not? I will tell you how. Okay. Don't talk nonsense if you do not know anything about it. Right? Now, when you do that, right? When you're working, force the companies like what they have done. The Business Federation have already received the instruction for tripartite negotiation. That you must increase by 5% pay, okay? Right? To 7%. Right? So for the working class, most of the working class in the SME, you may not feel the pinch as much as those retiree. Retiree, they don't work, right? They don't work. So they only have savings. And the interest rate doesn't increase by 5%, increase to 2 to 5%. That means and any increase in GST by 2% will discount, we call it discount, but in a more layman terms, will actually decrease their purchasing power, the amount of goods and services they can purchase exactly by 2% straight. All their saving will be devalued by 2% in real terms. So GST is very important to them. You don't suka go and increase GST because the retiree will suffer the most. Right? Imagine when GST increased by 2% by this year 1%, next year 1%, did they increase your CPF interest rate by 2%? No, I think only 0.4 or 0.5%. So in real terms, whatever you get from interest or your savings will be discounted, will be much less. How are you going to survive when you retire? And that actually affects everyone because CPF, every working fellow save for their retirement. But when you save, it's already discounted by the increase in GST. That is the real impact of GST increase. And that should not be done so easily. Prime Minister Lee says that, they are lean government, right? Blah, blah, blah. Effective, efficient, and a cost-effective government. If that is so, why are you increasing GST? Now, GST based, the revenue of GST based on what? Consumption. That means people go and buy things. Every dollar that you buy, right? 7%, 8%, or 9% will go to the government. Correct? Correct. So, if that is so, when you increase the population by 5%, you have more people coming to Singapore to consume, to buy food, for example, to buy anything. Your GST revenue, even without increasing your GST to 9%, right? By right, your revenue will be increased by 5%. It's a no-brainer. Then I will ask you, very straightforward. You already have an increase in GST collection due to the increase in population by migration. Why so are you still need to increase GST by absolute percentage? If you claim that your government is efficient, if you claim that your government is what? Cost effective. But in the end, you still cry, money no enough. That is the real issue, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. Okay? How can the government control inflation? Yes, they can. In fact, they have already done that by controlling our foreign exchange rate. We maintain a strong Sing dollars. I already say that, right? However, why is the inflation still going up? Because they increase demand by putting more people, increase the population by 5%. That's number one. Then they go and increase GST. Number two, it's all by their own doing. Then they go and increase essential services tax, water bond tax, like electric tariff. Please do not say that the government have nothing to do with the inflation. They are the biggest culprit of increasing or making the inflation even worse than it should be. They increase water bond tax. It's the timing. As I said, as a role of government, you are supposed to maneuver, right, to adjust accordingly. If there's a hyperinflation, you do not go and increase to add oil to the fire. You should be cooling it down, reduce the cost of businesses. Isn't that right? And you should go and reduce the pressure or the demand and not to add on the demand. Right? No, Pik Yang. Hey, don't be stupid. Pay GST with enjoyment of subsidies. You mean what? We are forever beggars. You want Singaporeans to be forever beggars? Every year waiting for PAP to throw you crumbs or GST vouchers? That is not the way to run the government. Absolutely not the way to run the government. Right? There are many other ways. As I said, different people have different consumption pattern. You are talking about, okay, I do not even need to talk about this, right? Rich people will have different type of consumption pattern, correct? Right? Poor people will have different set of things that you consume, all right? Right. So the only simple way is for those essential stuff, food, milk powder, you exempt the GST. And that is not something new. A lot of places they have value added tax, which is basically our GST, similar to GST. They exempt food stuff right? Essential foodstuff from GST. Why? Because the amount of money, the amount of money, the proportion of money that the lower income group spend on food is higher. Retiree without income will spend on food with a heavy percentage. You don't need to give them GST voucher. You just need to do that. Very simple. While those who are wealthy families, the proportion, the amount of money they spend on raw food is actually negligible, right? And that's why people are practicing it. Very simple. People are not stupid, you know. Don't ever think that you are the smartest in the world. That is the way of doing it. Simple, straightforward. And you can exempt GST for public transport companies because it's a it's a necessity, right? That most lower income people will take. They can't drive cars, right? They can't pay the what 100 over thousand COE for one piece of paper. Why can't it be done so? Is that or not? So don't ever say that the PAP cannot control inflation. They cannot fully reduce it due to supply chain issue. But at the very least, don't add oil to the fire. Doing the wrong thing at the wrong time will actually screw it up very badly. Even worse, trying to be populist, putting money, giving out money when there is already a high hyperinflation. You're increasing supply what consumption power. You are going to push the demand up. You are going to make the inflation even worse. Okay? I do not know. PAP is trying to have the cake and eat it, right? They are not cost effective in running the government. If they are, they will not be asking for more money from all aspects when they increase taxes, indirect taxes and direct taxes, as well as GST. Okay? They are not running it effectively, cost effectively, and efficiently. Definitely not. From what we are seeing, right? They're not spending within their means. And that's why they are desperate to increase all this. And reasonable? Are they reasonable? They are not reasonable. I have already explained why it's not reasonable. Right? The biggest consumption of water are the industrial and commercial players. And they're taxed the lowest, lower than us. The household domestic consumers. Imagine people who live in HDB are paying more tax in water than commercial buildings and industrial players. How can it be reasonable? You tell me? And in fact, it is not reasonable to tax us for building infrastructure for the future. This should come from infrastructure investment from the government. Right? From where? From the reserve lah. That's what the reserve for what? For future, for future, for future. If you don't use it for future investment, then what future for what type of future you are talking about? What type of spending in future you're talking about? So is it reasonable? No, it's not reasonable of sharing burden. It is not reasonable. In fact, even before, right? Before we are talking about increase in water tariff, the current tax structure, we are all already paying more than the industrial and the commercial users. So what what talk about reasonable burden that's shared by everyone? It doesn't make sense. Right? Now PAP can do better, but it can only do better when you have effective opposition in parliament. Talk some sense to them. You always say that opposition want of free services. What free services are we talking about? Nobody talk about free service. And whenever we talk about using reserve and all that, they say we are what? Fucking populists. And what they are doing right now, trying to throw money at those people to actually ease their discontent. That's populist, which will in fact backfire. They push the price higher. They are the populists, not us. They're out of their mind and desperate, okay, and very very desperate for money. I do not know. Okay, right? You know, people like to compare Singapore and Hong Kong. We try to attract so many foreign investment to Singapore, but using tax incentive, right? But the tax incentive, in relative terms, disadvantage our local SME because the foreign MNCs, because they're foreign, when they come in, they enjoy tax break, there's tax incentive. They enjoy special treatment for foreign talent, right? But if you try to go to Hong Kong and do investment, no, you don't have tax incentive on that. But people still invest in Hong Kong. Why? That is the question we must ask. Why? Okay? They put a lot of indirect taxes on us. When we have a higher living of standard, but are we really so? Recently, another article came out, okay, it was Lawrence Wong talking about HDB prices again. He used recycle the same narrative. Oh, last time, uh, his parents, my parents' generation, he's the same generation as me. Oh, pay only what 30,000 for HDB, right? But their pay is only $500 per month, right? They thought, oh, now our GDP per capita is so much, right? It's 70,000, right? And of course, we pay higher for HDB. No, that's not the way to look at it. Why? When you use GDP per capita, GDP per capita, it includes those people who do not need to buy HDB, not the first time buyer. The proper way of comparison is the average wages of those people who apply for HDB. They have the data. Don't tell me they don't have the data. Because when you apply for HDB loans or whatever loans, you need to declare your income, right? As compared to my father's generation, our parents' generation, when they buy the 20,000, 30,000 HDB flats, you just make a comparison. Definitely, it's not comparable. Okay? I tell you why. In very simple terms, when you do not add the full land cost into the HDB 40 years ago, right? Or 50 years ago, as compared to now, when you are charging land cost according to market price and market subsidies, we are not comparable because as a small country, as a small country, the land, the assets, the land price inflation will always outrun your salary, your wages. Especially when you are going to increase your population by 5% per year, or even 1% per year, 2% per year, right? Up to 5% per year. No, definitely no. I do not need to see the numbers. By simple logic. When you look at the sums, by simple comparison of with or without land cost, you already know the answers, right? By looking at the market prices, which is actually proxy, will be affected by the import of or population growth due to foreign migrants. You know, asset inflation, so-called. They name it so nice, asset enhancement, right? Your asset wealth increase. But can you enjoy your asset wealth? Can you sell your HDB, make a profit, and sleep on the street? No. When you have only one property, your for own stay, whatever asset inflation is not going to benefit you. Let's get this straight. Most Singaporeans have been fooled by that narrative, asset enhancement, right? Without understanding the context. And we can only harm our future generation if we allow this to carry on, right? We should not allow that to carry on, right? This is for something you think about. Whatever PAP is doing right now is harmful. It's actually putting oil into the fire of this hyperinflation situation. Foreign exchange measures can only be done to a certain level, right? Can only help to a certain level to curb the imported inflation. But you have continued to go and throw money into the market to increase demand. You are continuing to throw increase population to increase demand. You are continuing to increase tax to make cost of operation of business, the supply chain to increase cost. You're asking for trouble, right? And PAP always pride themselves as the smartest people that can run this country. I think in this instance, in this instance, they are really going to screw it up big time. Not doing the right thing at the right time, right? Very bad timing. Thank you for watching. Good night.